All right, what's up, and welcome into a all-new A Bettor Morning right here on the Better Sports Network. A Bettor Morning provided and sponsored by the good people over at Rival Fantasy. Rival Fantasy is your all-in-one fantasy sports platform. It's where I won at last week. It's where you can win at this week. And hell, every night they got contests going where you can practice your fantasy game. It's your boy Corey Parson, fantasy executive. A little bit later on in the program, I'm going to give you some of my latest thoughts on the latest AP Top 25 poll, and I need to pull that up because I don't have it in front of me. Need to be better prepared, you know what I'm saying? Got a couple of key matchups in the AFC this week I want to touch on. One of them includes the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll get to that in a second. Speaking of AFC, Pittsburgh Steelers were a loser this week. But Antonio Brown was a guest on It Is What It Is with Cam and Mace earlier this week. And I want to touch on a couple of things he said as we get towards the end of the program. But I'm going to start the show today, and I might get into a little bit of trouble. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really want to be like, do the right thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to be the right guy, fantasy executive, like fantasy executive. He's a friend of mine, smart guy, knows football. I consider him a buddy, a pal. You know what I'm saying? Someone I would go sit down, have a couple brewskis with and watch the game. He don't say nothing too crazy. He don't go out his way. Whatever, tell jokes, talk a little trash. That's him. But I might get some of you upset with me today because, like, fantasy executive is a part of my aura. But then there's also another guy called No Cap Corey. So it's like, it's three. You know, it's many different moods of the fantasy executive. It's Corey Parson, that's me, that's the father, you know what I'm saying? The father, then whatever else, don't worry about all of that. Then there's the fantasy executive, the guy to give you football advice, fantasy football betting, talk trash on the radio, you know what I'm saying? Or on your digital networks. Then there's Grill Master P. That's 12 o'clock noon Saturday, getting ready for college football on the grill, you know what I'm saying, cooking stuff up. Chef CP, you know what I mean? Then it's air fryer shorty. When I'm in the house, I'm not really a big cook, but the air fryer saved my life. So I got many different modes. But No Cap Corey can get on underneath people's skin because No Cap Corey is a truth teller. And when I see it, I got to say it. And we need to have a conversation about Lamar Jackson, the Baltimore Ravens quarterback. Now, I know it's blaspheme to talk negatively about Lamar Jackson. And I don't want to talk negatively about Lamar Jackson. I'm a Lamar Jackson supporter. He's my guy, LJ, number 8. You know what I'm saying? I know people that know Lamar Jackson. People that get on the telephone and call him. You know what I'm saying? I'm a Lamar Jackson supporter. Got Lamar Jackson on a number of fantasy teams this year. This past week, Lamar Jackson finished as QB 27. It seems like Lamar Jackson is finishing out the top 12 more and more frequently. Change offensive coordinator, bring Todd Monken in, get Odell Beckham, Zay Flowers. I'm going to love this Baltimore Raven offense. And they come out in week 1 versus the Texans, and I'm like, what is going on? What are we doing here? Nothing looks innovative about this offense. I don't see a whole bunch of running up and down the field and passes flying and scores. Now, I understand Mark Jackson was absent. Mark Andrews, excuse me. Mark Jackson wouldn't be there. I understand Mark Andrews was absent. But the offense still didn't look right. And then I said, you know what, fantasy exec, let's not be too harsh on Lamar Jackson because we love Lamar Jackson. The community loves Lamar Jackson. The people love Lamar Jackson. It's blaspheme to talk negatively about Lamar Jackson. He just got the bag. We always rooting for him. Then I look back at last year. Well, Lamar Jackson played and then completed 11 games last year. All right, 11. All right, let me write that down. In 6 of those games, he finished as QB 1 through 11. Good. In 5 of those games, he finished as QB 15 to 33. It's only 32 quarterbacks. This is not acceptable for a quarterback that you draft with hopes of being an MVP and winning you a fantasy championship. Now, I'm not saying that the best of Lamar Jackson is behind us, But we got to have a serious conversation about the fact that the numbers ain't adding up. The stats ain't statting. Why is Lamar Jackson not consistently a top fantasy quarterback? Now, last year, 11 weeks, start and finish the game, a QB won 6 times, QB 15 to 33, 5 times. That's not going to cut it when I'm spending draft capital on Jackson. But you can never say nothing bad about Jackson, though. Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens, period, they have a great PR staff. You can never say anything bad about them. People get on your case. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. And the truth of the matter is this. The Lamar Jackson clapback is, well, look at his record, 47-18 as a starter. Not worried about your fantasy team as long as he wins games. The past 2 seasons when Lamar Jackson got hurt, the Baltimore Ravens were the number 1 seed in the AFC. The Baltimore Ravens have a kryptonite, though. Their kryptonite name is Joe Burrow. And styles make fights. Now, talked about styles make fights last week. Told you the Browns better than the Bengals. When they face head up, the Browns got the Bengals numbers. Styles make fights. Told you last week, watch out for the Rams. The Rams got the Seahawks number. Styles make fights. The Cincinnati Bengals have the Baltimore Ravens number. I believe Joe Burrow was like 5-1 versus Baltimore. Last season, Baltimore did beat them in Baltimore, 19-17. Later on in the year, the Bengals got to win. Obviously, Lamar didn't play. And in the playoff game, Lamar didn't play. The Bengals won that game as well. And the Baltimore fought in that game with Ty Huntley. And they should have won that game if he didn't have that crazy fumble down the stretch. Bengals-Ravens this weekend is a marquee matchup. And right now, like how I went to DraftKings Sportsbook, right? I went over to, I have a subscription where I saw where I can get the splits, the betting splits, so I can see the numbers behind the window. 70% of the tickets are backing the Baltimore Ravens. Now, mind you, I told you, it's blasphemy to talk negative about the Ravens. You see the fans love the Ravens. 70% of the tickets on the Baltimore Ravens. Yet, the line went from 3 to -3.5. Because the people that tell the truth know that Cincinnati Bengals have the Baltimore Ravens numbers and they're probably going to throttle them. They beat them 41-17 a couple years ago. See what Cincinnati does that Baltimore can't handle? They push the football down the field against the Ravens and they open up and expose that Ravens secondary. This is going to be, you're going to see Jamar Chase through the gritty. You're going to see Joe Burrow throw 2 touchdown passes. It's going to be an electric atmosphere as the Bengals going to unleash their offense that was stagnant last week on the Baltimore Ravens. Now, if the Ravens, this game goes the way I say, everybody says, oh, well, it was the Ravens defense, it ain't Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson got to step up and play better. He has to. I don't want to hear about the offensive coordinator. I don't want to hear about the weapons. They gave you that money in the offseason, didn't they? That means you're the man. See, because when they were saying, hey, we don't really want to accolade this too much money, we can get you some more weapons and stuff like that. No. I'm not coming back until I get that money. So you got the money now. Now it's your team. What are you going to do, Lamar? You have to have a great performance against the Bengals this week, or else the talks are going to start to get loud. Because now you got the bag. Now you got paid, Lamar. Now you got to show up. You can't be quarterback 15 to 33 5 weeks out of an 11-week season for you. It's not going to cut it when I spend good draft capital on you. And I know you don't like to hear me talk negatively about Lamar Jackson. I love Lamar Jackson. I do. Bottom line of the matter is, if I see it, I got to say it. And Lamar Jackson has not been getting it done. Oh, Baltimore Ravens offense under Todd Monken, and it looked the same as the last guy. I know you're going to throw tomatoes at me. I know you're going to come at me on social media. I know you're going to be in the comment section saying, I don't know what I'm talking about. But let me tell you something. If you got Lamar Jackson as your fantasy QB1, you know I'm telling the truth. No cap Corey, a.k.a. the fantasy executive. Now, right here is normally where we would take a commercial. But this is not that type of event. You know what I'm saying? So I'll take this time right here to tell you about the Fantasy Alarm All-Pro subscription. Start a free 7-day trial of Fantasy Alarm's All-Pro subscription. Get all of the Week 2 DFS content and picks for free. Go to fantasyalarm.com/NFL. DFS content is probably going to be focusing pretty heavy on this game between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Kansas City Chiefs. This is what I'm looking forward to this week as well. I told you it was going to be big-time, powerful matchups in the AFC every week. The AFC is loaded. Like last week, we got that goodie between the Chargers and the Dolphins. This week, we should have the same type of atmosphere between Chiefs and Jaguars. Now, latest on Travis Kelce is going to be important. Travis Kelce, tight end, had that bone bruise, right? Taylor Swift chilling with her, all of that, whatever. So, got the bone bruise. Should be the swelling. He practiced earlier this week. The swelling went down. So, they're pretty optimistic. Well, practiced in the last week. Swelling went down. There was no swelling. So, they're pretty optimistic that Kelce will be available this week for Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs because they looked horrible without him last week. But y'all do know that Travis Kelce is 33 going on 34 years old. He's no spring chicken. Deep bone bruise like this, maybe it just doesn't, maybe just don't rub dirt on it and goes away. Maybe, this is going to hamper Kelce. Maybe they're going to use Kelce as like a decoy, but now they need him. You know what I'm saying? If you are Patrick Mahomes, can you trust the rest of that wide receiver crew? Can you trust the rest of your playmakers? This is another big week for the Patrick Mahomes rushing over. I would go there. Jacksonville Jaguars side of the ball. Who do Kansas City have is going to stop Calvin Ridley? This is an interesting game right here. This is Jacksonville at home. That's critical now. Jacksonville at home is critical. Why? Because you coming from Kansas City to go play in Florida Heat in September. Advantage Jacksonville. Travis Kelce beat up. Advantage Jacksonville. Calvin Ridley looks AI generated. Advantage Jacksonville. The line opened up. Kansas City laying 3. Almost 90% of the tickets back in the Chiefs. The line hasn't moved yet. That's interesting, but it's middle of the week. Line movement you pay attention to Sunday night, early Monday line movement, and then the next week, Sunday morning going into the game line movement. Saturday night after college, Sunday morning going into the game. You pay attention to that line movement. This is what I suspect is going to happen. Right now, I think odds makers, sharps, know that they like Jacksonville in this game. The public thinks there's no way Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes can start the season 0-2. So I'm like, If Travis Kelce says that he's healthy, the odds makers are going to move this to Kansas City -3.5. At that point, please hop on in Jacksonville Jaguars getting the hook at home with the field goal against a Kansas City team that I'm not sure is going to be at full strength. I know Calvin Ridley is going to be at full strength. So that's going to be problematic. So give me the Jacksonville Jaguars, take the 3.5 and sprinkle the money line. Jacksonville starts the season 0-2. Jacksonville starts the season 2-0. Kansas City starts the season 0-2. You can get involved with that contest and all the other contests going on this weekend, including tomorrow night's game over at Rival Fantasy, the all-in-one fantasy sports platform, challenges, fantasy bingo, all of those contests. Good times to be had over at Rival Fantasy. AP Top 25. Let me go in here. Thank you, my dearest Heather, and pull this up right here. Give you a couple thoughts on the college game. All right. So I'm going to go full screen because I can read it right off here. Heather, you can give me stop right there, Heather. I want a couple of thoughts. First of all, let's go with the Georgia Bulldogs. Top team in the country, right? And rightfully so. Georgia is not going to go through an undefeated SEC season this year. Somebody is going to trip Georgia up this season. Georgia is too inexperienced and young to have an undefeated SEC season. Now, they're probably still going to be in the the college football playoff. They'll be in the SEC championship game. I don't see them being an undefeated SEC champion this year. Now, I'm going to sound biased, but South Carolina could be the team to get the upset as a 27-point underdog. I would take the points and sprinkle the money line. I'm serious about that. Despite Spencer Rattler looking crazy, I want to see what Georgia looks like in SEC competition. Number 3, Florida. That's the best team that I've seen in college football this year. Jordan Travis, Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson, the dogs on defense. Florida State's a team destined for a college football playoff appearance. Texas, with that win over Alabama, they have the inside track in the Big 12. Only Oklahoma and Kansas State left on the schedule as marquee matchups. They should be in the Big 12 championship game. They win that, they'll be in the college football playoff. USC, you already know. It's a showdown coming up against Colorado later on this month. That could break every single television record for a college athletic event we've ever seen. Even Heather, go and watch that one. Ohio State, Penn State, 6-7. A lot of people like Penn State this year, but you know they still got to go against Ohio State and Michigan. That's where it's going to come in. Number 9, Notre Dame. Notre Dame's got a loaded schedule. I like this Notre Dame team a lot so far from what I've seen. Obviously, they'll whip up on Central Michigan, but they got some big games coming up down the stretch. Alabama, LSU, Alabama 10, LSU 14. They play each other in a few weeks. The winner of that game will more than likely play Georgia in the SEC championship game. Oregon got that big matchup coming up versus Colorado. Number 12, Utah. Utah is the Pac-12 team that is most likely set up to beat Colorado. That's the Pac-12 team with the defenses that can beat teams like USC and Oregon and Colorado. Utah is a team that can do it. Keep an eye out for them. Then you got Colorado down there at 18. You know they got the big matchup coming up a little bit later on this season. Now, where's the team? Go down a little bit, Heather. Pause. Number 21. This is fascinating to me. I think the Duke Blue Devils are an interesting team this year. I really do. I like the quarterback, Leonard. I like the way they play defense. And I like the fact that it's Duke basketball. Duke football, not basketball. So you don't expect anything from them. Now, they do have a tough schedule. The middle of that schedule coming up has like Notre Dame, Clemson, and like Florida State. They win 2 of those 3 games. Duke is cooking. They lose all 3, they'll drop out the top 25. But pay close attention to this Duke Blue Devil team. I think Duke could possibly play in the ACC championship game, which would be phenomenal for the Duke Blue Devils. So that's a little quick wrap up on college football. Thank you very much, Heather. Now, my man Antonio Brown. And I say Antonio Brown is my man. And a lot of you may not like that, but I don't care. Because if it's not for Antonio Brown, there's no fantasy executive. When I said the fantasy, when I was touting Antonio Brown, people used to think that I didn't know what I was talking about when it came to fantasy. And then Antonio Brown went off and became a generational fantasy talent. And it was like, and then the fantasy executive was born. Ask Jeff Mans. So he tweeted out yesterday that, the Pittsburgh Steelers need a wide receiver. Listen, Antonio, no, nobody's going to sign Antonio Brown because all you're going to do is quit on them. That's your MO. You quit at Central Michigan, you quit at Pittsburgh, and then you quit with the Raiders, and then you quit with Tampa. So you can't be trusted to finish the job. I love you to death, but no Cap Corey. If I see it, I got to say it. But I will tell you one thing. When Antonio Brown was on with Cam and Mace on It Is What It Is this week, their podcast. And if you can get through the scatterbrain that is Antonio Brown and the 305 dialect and kind of get to what he's saying, he spoke very poignantly about Sean Payton and Russell Wilson. And he feels the same way I feel, that Sean Payton is going to bench Russell Wilson at some point this season. And Antonio Brown made a very interesting point. He said they started the game with an onside kick. And he was like, that's because Sean Payton wanted to see right away what Russell Wilson had. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then Antonio Brown said something else very interesting. He said when veterans chase money and go to a different team, that those teams normally lose. And I was like, wow, that is true. Because you saw a veteran chasing money in Russell Wilson. He wanted Seahawks to extend him. Brown also said, when a quarterback wins Super Bowls like that for you, you don't just throw him to the wind. So Pete Carroll is right. Russell Wilson is washed up. And I think Sean Payton knows that. And Brown was correct to mention that's why they did that onside kick. They wanted to see what he had. Russell Wilson's going to get benched this year. And I'm gonna be here for it because y'all know that I've always been like, nah, this guy is not, his best days are behind him. But I found out what Brown was interesting. I thought about DeAndre Hopkins. Veterans chasing money end up on bad teams. So there you go right there. Just my thoughts on my man AB. Good times, everybody. Let's see what's coming up next on Better Sports Network today. What we got? There you go right there. Sportstopia, Fantasy Fire and Ice coming up right after us, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time with Chris Crawford and Sarah Sanchez. Shout out to my colleagues over at Sportstopia. You know that website is live right now, sportstopia.io. Go check that out. All right, so don't get mad at me. Too bad for talking about Lamar Jackson. If I see it, I got to say it. Fantasy executive always tell the truth. So don't be in my comments, oh, Lamar win. I understand everything you say about Lamar. I get it. Quarterback 15 is not going to cut it. Got to do a better job. All right, so we out for the day. I want to thank everybody for rocking and rolling with us. For the lovely and talented Heather Klein, it's Corey Parson, the Fantasy Executive, a.k.a. No Cap Corey. Wishing you a better day.